So this one is all about Final X Wrestling. So on Saturday, June 10th, my brother, my dad, myself, my son, my niece, we all went to see Final X Wrestling in Newark, New Jersey at the Prudential Center. And, I'm obviously a lifelong wrestler. I wrestled in college. I fought post-college. I spent a lot of time sharing those lessons with mostly students, middle and high school students, sharing some of those lessons and winning and losing, dealing with adversity, character, choices, perseverance, etc. And when I went to this event on Saturday, it was like it was everything I want to be, right? And I'm saying this as a 42-year-old, and I'm sure there's some nuance, and I don't know the full story, and I don't know everyone as well as you think you might know them on the service. But my point is this: when I got there on Saturday with my son, with my niece, with my brother, with my dad, and I took a seat. And the first match, I think it was the very first match. We got there a little bit late, but I sat down, and it was like within 5 minutes, I feel like Kyle Dake was wrestling Jason Nolf. And I have chills right now talking about this. It's like my first memories as a kid. I wanted to be like these wrestlers that I looked up to. And, as a kid, they're older. I strive to be like them. Or Dan Gable, I'm not a giant Iowa fan, but Dan Gable, I feel like when I was an up and coming young little wrestler, that was like the guy. I remember vividly watching Cael Sanderson wrestle. I remember vividly when NCAAs were in State College. I think it was in '99. Seeing Brock Lesnar go out, Cormier, Teague Moore, the Strip Matters, all of these guys that were older than me. I just wanted to be like them. And then when I sat down, 42, I have my son right next to me, and I'm watching these guys and women now, and women, these guys and women wrestling, and I'm thinking, that's what I want to be. And when I say that's what I want to be, I don't mean a world team member wrestler. I'm not wrestling anymore. I'm past that. But what they represent. And I wrote in a post after that, the highest level wrestler with the highest level character is the highest level person, in my opinion. And that's what I mean when I say that I want to be like those guys. And specifically what I mean by that is this: they put so much work into their mission, their goal, their life is that. Their life is discipline. Their life is hard work. Their life is pursuit. Their life is dealing with adversity and letdown. Thomas Gilman lost and is not on the world team. And I specifically remember one of the most popular tweets I ever put out was him when he lost in NCAAs. And he said something like, the sun will come up tomorrow. And I thought, I posted it and I said, wow, that's tremendous. And he's still doing it. He specifically, because he didn't make the team, and I made that post years ago when he lost at NCAAs, he's been dealing with heartache and heartbreak, I'm going to say forever. I dealt with it. If you're in the sport of wrestling, you've dealt with it. In life, you deal with it. And he's just one of so many people that represent exactly what I'm talking about when I say that's what I want to be like, to be able to put everything into something, put it out for the whole world to see, one-on-one, you're on the mat with your opponent, and then to fall short, and then to stand up with dignity and respect, and then to shake hands, and then to walk off, and then sometimes to take pictures with the man or woman who just beat you. I don't know if it was Diac Mahalis or no, it was Nishan and Vito Arujo. They were taking pictures after. And a lot of these guys train at the same clubs. It's from the same school. My niece said all these guys are from Penn State, right? So it's like they're probably practice partners. I want this dream more than anything in the world. You want this dream more than anything in the world. Only one of us can have it, yet they're both going to be civil about it. It's everything that I want to be. It's everything that I hope to pass on through what I do now, certainly to my kids, but to every kid that I reach with my assembly program, with my books, with my student podcast, because it's It's like the epitome of life, I think. Specifically speaking, I want to just kind of riff on some of the memories that stick out to me. So we got there a little bit late. Final X is the final competition to determine who wrestles on the world team, the U.S. world team. And it is a fundraiser for Beat the Streets. And they host it, they host the event. It's in Newark, New Jersey. And it was a potentially best of 3 series. It is a best of 3 series, 2 matches or 3 matches, depending. And so I just want to take you through some of my riffing thoughts. Vito Arujau and Nishan Garrett, it was like the most incredible display of cat-like reflexes that I've ever seen in my life. It was absolute insanity watching these two compete, not compete, but react. Their reflexes. It is insane, inspiring, and insane. And then specifically, about Jason Nolf and Kyle Dake. So I'm a fan of wrestling. Obviously, I grew up in Central PA, not far from Penn State. So I've always had kind of a leaning toward Penn State. Nolf is about as much of a stud as you can be. And then to see Dake completely shut him down. I found myself saying to my son, and I wasn't doing this on purpose, but it happened at least 4 times. Then I just stopped saying it anymore. Someone would come up and I'd be like, oh, Rock, this guy right here, this guy. And I was mostly focused on the men's freestyle. That's what I was most interested in. I was like, Rock, this guy's like not just one of the best, but one of the best ever. And I found myself, I honestly said that probably 4 times in a row. And then I thought, wait, he can't differ. He just thinks everyone's the best in the world. But with Dake, the level of his wrestling, and my brother said, he used the term impenetrable. The level that Dake is on, considering the fact that Nolf is as good as Nolf is, and then to see Dake completely control that match was mind-blowing. And another thing, before moving on to specific matchups, another thing that this was like for me, I imagine that those questions like, if anyone from any area could fight anyone or wrestle anyone from any area, or if you could have dinner with only one person from history that's dead or alive, who would it be? If you could, meet Jesus, what would you ask? If you could, all these like hypotheticals, I felt like that at this match, at this tournament, because it was like the biggest names you could ever imagine versing each other, wrestling each other, competing against each other. It was honestly like you and your buddies sitting around, hypothetically speaking, if you could have Jason Nolf wrestle Kyle Dake, if you could have Aaron Brooks wrestle David Taylor, but then they were actually freaking doing it, which was mind-blowing. So we got there a little bit late, didn't see Gilman's first match, ultimately saw Gilman losing, again, going back to the character of these guys, just losing with grace, losing with dignity. I mentioned Arujau and Garrett's insane reflexes. Diakomahalis falling short. It's like 1 second you're on top of the world, winning your 4th national title, and then the next you're not making the world team. And if you consider how much these men and women put into this, and then what dawned on me was, once you lose, right, it's June and you lost, it's not like there are a lot of other opportunities out there. I mean, you're fighting for a spot on the thing. It's like when you lose the Olympics, well, you got to wait another 4 years for the Olympics. And what are they doing now? It's the 13th. If they fell short, what are they thinking now? What are they feeling now? How are they redirecting their energy? That's the stuff that I'm fascinated with. So, and again, I'm not going to go through every match, but the ones that in the moment, jump to my mind. I've always had, I don't know Jordan Burroughs personally, but I did record a commercial with him leading up to the Olympics when Ralph Lauren was their outfitter, Ralph Lauren. And I went, if you get on I don't know the exact name on YouTube, but if you just type in Jordan Burroughs, Ralph Lauren Olympics commercial, it should pop up. I'm his drilling partner. Weird, crazy story how that came about. But anyhow, talk to him a little bit there. But I've always had just utmost respect for Jordan Burroughs. Kyle Snyder jumps out at me too. It's kind of like this. I don't want to say the same time, but I connect those two together because Burroughs was already established. Kyle Snyder was coming up. This was pre Gable Steveson, these memories that were formulated in my brain. But I've always had I'm emotionally attached to Burroughs winning. Just, I don't know why. I don't know him. I don't know. I just am. But at the same time, Chance Marsteller is, I don't want to say a Cinderella story, but here's a guy who was everything coming out of high school, hit seriously difficult patches in his life, and ends up beating Burroughs to make the world team spot. There's so much emotion, history, future involved in these matches. And I'm sitting there, when you watch you watch a Super Bowl and you're like, you feel bad for Tom Brady if he loses, and you're like, who the heck am I to feel bad for Tom Brady or whoever? Maybe you hate Tom Brady, but that's what I'm feeling. All these things sitting on the edge of the seat, and then you have Taylor wrestling Aaron Brooks, and my feeling with that was kind of, I don't want to say man versus boy because that is an extreme version of what I'm talking about. But, Taylor's a gold medalist. Taylor is older. Aaron Brooks is still developing in terms of international wrestling. In the first match, Taylor beat him pretty handily. And I thought, yeah, that's kind of what I figured would happen. And then the second match, Brooks is just like, I don't want to say putting it on him because ultimately he lost, but it was such a competitive match. And again, you have two of the most stand-up people on the planet. And it's so cool to see. And then to see them compete against each other, it was insanity. I can't explain how awesome and much it meant to me. My son, he's 6. And again, I'm telling him, left and right, who's the best in the world, etc. For him, it was a long event. We were there a long time. So he started to lose it toward the end. But exposing him to that level of person is super important to me. Same with my daughter. Any opportunity we get to put them around what we as parents feel like are great examples of human beings is something that if I can make it happen financially, it'll happen. Kyle Snyder didn't wrestle because Jaden Cox, I don't even know what the full story was, but Kyle Snyder didn't wrestle. We saw Gable Stevenson's first match with Mason Paris, and unbelievable. So Gable Steveson, like I said, I have these memories of where I was in my life, in my old house, watching Burroughs fall short. I think it was in Rio. At that time, Kyle Snyder had become the youngest world champ. I think it was the youngest world champ ever, and then Olympic champ. So I have those two emotionally kind of connected in my brain from memories. Thomas Gilman, like I said, I remember watching that in my old house when he lost at NCAAs. And then Steveson is a more current memory that just absolutely blows my mind. Everything about him, talent, physicality, athleticism, dominance. And then you're trying to put these pieces together in your brain and seeing where all these figures fit. You have Dake, you have Taylor, you have Steveson, you have Snyder, you have Burroughs, you have Marsteller, you have Araujo, you have not Gilman, all of these. You have a guy like Zane Richards, who Zane Rutherford. How the heck did I forget him? Zane Rutherford. So I forgot how much I love watching Zane Rutherford wrestle. One of my favorite. I forgot how much I love to watch him wrestle. And then I saw him and I was like, oh yes, he's here. And again, it's just straight doing things the right way. That's what I love the most about life, I think. It's when you see people do things the right way and then they win. And then you see them do things the right way and then they lose and then they handle themselves with grace and dignity. That to me, it excites me as much as anything in the world. It's why I do what I do. It's why I share my story with kids. It's why I write books for kids. It's why I have a podcast for kids, because I think I don't even know what the way to say it, but it's my opinion, the right way. It is the path, right? It's the right way. It's the path. And I think it's unbelievable. And I'm sure I forgot additional names or didn't give proper credit. I may have misspoke here or there because I'm straight riffing, but to see that the growth of women's wrestling, the dominance of some of the women wrestling, the Greco guys, there was a 43-year-old Greco guy wrestling, and I'm not as familiar with the Greco guys. But it was awesome. The men's freestyle, women's freestyle, men's Greco, absolutely fascinating stuff. You just see these men and women who put everything into what they're going after. And I think that's the coolest thing in life. I think it's awesome. I think discipline to me, discipline and consistency, dealing with adversity, perseverance, losing with grace, standing up, getting up when you get knocked down, all those things are like the most exciting things in the world to me. It's what I strive to teach other people. And I can't wait to, follow along with World Championships and then the Olympics and all this other stuff. So that is my recap of Final X. I hope you enjoyed it. I think that's it. So thanks for tuning in. This is the Spaniard Show. I encourage you to subscribe. I do book reviews. I do these talks where I riff about recent events, about my business. I do interviews. My goal, and I'm becoming more and more clear on this, is to embody and inspire lifelong learning. And that is through reading, that is through asking questions, that is through challenging yourself. I love health. I love fitness. I love nutrition. I love training. I love trying to get the most out of myself in life. And that's what this show is about, kind of bringing you real time in my endeavors, and then also hopefully inspiring you in your own life. So the Spaniard Show on your podcast app, charliespaniard.com is my website. I have links to my social media, my speaking program information. I've recently released a student book. I have another young reader version of my first book coming out. Dred and I, my business partner, we have several more books in the works. Spaniard School is my student podcast. If you have a youngster, middle schooler, high schooler in your life, I encourage you to listen to that, share it with them, create some conversation about all these topics that I just talked about through this episode. So thank you all for tuning in. See you next time.